Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Check 1, 2, check. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Breaking news, sad news. Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. This may come as a surprise, as yesterday he met with J.D. Vance, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But Pope Francis, who became the first South American and first Jesuit to ascend to the most powerful position in the Catholic Church, has passed away at the age of 88, just one day after, of course, Easter Sunday. Cardinal Kevin Farrell confirmed that the Pope had passed on Monday. Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis, Farrell said in the announcement. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with faithfulness, courage, and universal love, especially for the poorest and most marginalized. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of God, one, and Tribune. Now begins the process of selecting a new pope. It generally takes place between 15 and 20 days after the pontiff's death. The pope's death comes just one day after he met with Vice President J.D. Vance. That was at the Vatican. You may have seen the videos and the posts from that. Later that day, Francis delegated the saying of Easter Mass. After the Mass concluded, the Pope took the Pope-mobile, as it's affectionately known, into St. Peter's Square for the first time since his health battle. He had been dealing with pneumonia and other respiratory issues. On March 6th, the pontiff's voice was heard for the first time since his weeks-long hospital stay. In an audio message, he thanked well-wishers before saying, "I am with you from here." So again, the breaking story happening just hours ago, Pope Francis passing away at the age of 88. As I mentioned, he met with J.D. Vance just yesterday. A statement saying Pope Francis had a brief private encounter lasting a few minutes in order to exchange good wishes on Easter Day. For his part, Vance made sure the occasion was shared on social media. Vance and the Pope have tangled over migration and some political issues in the past. I understand that the Pope, Francis, gifting J.D. Vance's children an Easter gift. But again, Pope Francis passing away at the age of 88. We can talk more about that if you would like. We've got some other breaking stories. Oh, I wanted to mention, we're going to be talking with Chris Sharman, the executive director of CSS Workforce New York, a little bit later on in the program, because there is a job fair coming up on Wednesday at Corning Community College. It's from 11 to 2 p.m. We're going to hear all about that, what to expect, what you should know to be prepared to attend the job fair at CCC. Also, breaking story from yesterday. It is being reported that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sent details of the March attack in Yemen in a second group chat that included his wife, brother, and personal lawyer. This is the latest scandal out of the Pentagon in a chaotic few weeks. And now we know that, three advisors or three employees for Hegseth had been taken off duty, if you will. Three former senior advisors to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. They made a statement on Saturday saying what they're called baseless attacks after each was escorted from the Pentagon in an expanding probe on information leaks. Dan Caldwell, a Hegseth aide, Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff to Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg, and Darren Seltnick, Hegseth's Deputy Chief of Staff, were among four officials in Hegseth's inner circle who were ousted in the past week. So on top of that, we now learn that Pete Hegseth shared war plans in a second Signal chat. The information he shared was nearly identical to what was sent in another chat that mistakenly included that left-wing journalist from The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, Jeffrey Goldberg, there's still a lot of questions surrounding that. Jeffrey Goldberg, of course, a big foe to the Trump administration. So how he ever got on there raised some red flags for many. The revelation of a second sensitive group chat in just a few weeks after news of the first one broke adds to the apparent dysfunction inside the Defense Department, in which multiple top Hegseth advisors have been shown the door and a probe into alleged leaks is underway. So I guess the question this poses, do you think Hegseth will last? Do you think that the distraction caused by Hegseth, and I'm not calling for his ouster, I'm just curious if that will happen. A former head Pentagon spokesperson, John Oliot, who resigned last week, described the tumultuous few weeks with the department as a month, we'll say, from heck. in an op-ed published by Politico on Sunday and said President Trump deserves better leadership in the department. The second chat supposedly shared details about the schedule of the airstrike on the Iran-backed terrorist group. Hegseth's wife and Fox News alum, Jennifer, has also reportedly been included in sensitive meetings with foreign military officials, according to the Wall Street Journal. The news of the latest mishandling of sensitive information follows a series of outings at the Pentagon amid a leak investigation at the department. As I mentioned, the three Hegseth aides that were ousted were calling the attacks baseless. At this time, we still have not been told what exactly we are being investigated for. If there is still an active investigation, or if there was even a real investigation of leaks to begin with. The upheaval comes less than 100 days into the Trump administration, where the Pentagon has found itself frequently in the epicenter of controversial moves, according to the AP. There's an interesting article by Michael Goodwin at the New York Post, and maybe we'll get to it a little bit later on in the program, calling out the Associated Press for their bias. And that's not in reference to this article, but just in general. So again, calling them baseless attacks, not even sure if there is an ongoing investigation. Your thoughts on that? There's also, speaking of sensitive information that has been leaked, the Washington Post has a story that came out yesterday that says that sensitive documents, including White House floor plans, have been improperly shared with thousands of people. Government officials under both Joe Biden and Donald Trump improperly shared sensitive documents with thousands of federal workers, including potentially classified floor plans of the White House, according to internal records reviewed by the Washington Post. Career employees, bureaucrats, at the General Services Administration, which provides administrative and technological support for much of the federal bureaucracy and manages the government's real estate portfolio, were responsible for the oversharing, which spurred a cybersecurity incident report and investigation last week. The records show that the employees inadvertently shared a Google Drive folder containing the sensitive documents with the entire GSA staff, which totals more than 11,200 people, according to the agency's online directory. The information shared also included the details of a proposed blast door for the White House Visitor Center, as well as bank account information for a vendor who assisted with a Trump administration news conference. The Google Drive incident is the latest digital security lapse for the Trump administration. Last month, top officials inadvertently included the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic magazine, as we were talking about earlier. Now Pete Hegseth looking as if he shared sensitive information on a different Signal app. I still am not 100% sure what Signal is. I mean, I understand the concept of it, but I'm not sure why it's being used so much by government employees. Your thoughts? Do you think with some of the problems that has happened surrounding Hegseth losing three of those aides, they're put on leave because of perhaps leaking. You also have this news story where he has shared sensitive information in a different Signal app. Do you think he will last in his position? We also have a lot to talk about with New York State issues. As you know, the budget, still no budget. But we're going to talk about that. We're also got, maybe if we have an opportunity, an update on former Governor Andrew Cuomo and his mayoral run. We also have a lot just about the Trump administration. Obviously, Chris Van Hollen meeting with Garcia. We talked about that story extensively on Friday. We've got some updates on that as they met. It is being reported that Garcia is no longer in that El Salvadorian prison. We'll talk about that as well. Many people pointing to that meeting, criticizing Senator Van Hollen for meeting with Garcia, standing up for Garcia more than he did his constituents, as we talked about Miss Morin, who was murdered by an illegal immigrant, that being Senator Van Hollen's constituent, not really talking about that, focusing more on Garcia. We're going to be talking about that as well. But again, if you are just joining us, if you're just waking up this morning, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. We've got to take our first break. As I mentioned a little bit later on, Chris Sharman from CSS Workforce will be joining us to talk about Wednesday's job fair. So make sure you get your calendar. Mark your calendar for the job fair, which is Wednesday from 11 till 2 at SUNY CCC in their gymnasium. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Just started. Just getting warmed up. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When you think boots, think Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel-toe boots, Met-Guard boots, soft-toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots, all in one location. Hesselson's at Meyer Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry: Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keen Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
In today's securing your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Twins' first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors, Dante, Haley, and Ann. Find out what's happening in your community and more by watching Big Fox 10 p.m. News on
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Look at that beautiful view of historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from Mark. Good morning, Frank. I hope you had a great Easter. Well, I hope you had a great Easter too, Mark. Boy, it went quick, didn't it? I know we had Friday off here, but the long weekend went very fast. Mark writes, it's sad that the Pope died. I watched him and Vance yesterday, but the old saying is true. You feel the best the day before you die. Yeah, he looked very good. It was very shocking waking up this morning and hearing the breaking news that Pope Francis had passed away at 88, because you saw him meet with J.D. Vance. It seemed like a nice meeting, kind of quick. The Pope the people around the Pope making sure that that was known, that it was a quick visit. I don't know why that was so necessary. But the Pope passing away at 88, so now we'll watch the process of the selection of a new Pope, which is always kind of an interesting ceremony, if you will. All right, let's talk a little bit about university updates. Cornell is in a little hot water. Now, Cornell, right down the road, of course, in Ithaca, Cornell has invited a entertainer, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce her name properly, Kalani, who has been in the past accused of Jew bashing. She will perform on the campus on May 7th. Kalani has a music video that starts with "Long live the Intifada," an inflammatory phrase that critics say promotes violence against Israel and Jews. Shared a map online that eliminates the state of Israel and refused to condemn Hamas for the October 7, 2023 massacre. The invite to the multi-Grammy Award nominated R&B artist comes after the Trump administration froze $1 billion in federal funding to the upstate Ivy League school amid a civil rights probe over whether it's failed to prevent anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment on campus. Now, we know Cornell hasn't been quite as much in the news as Columbia or as Harvard, but very much under investigation for anti-Semitism, and this is not going to help matters, inviting Kalani, who has a history of this kind of anti-Semitic rhetoric. Kalani isn't just an artist with controversial views. She is someone who has publicly glorified violence against Jews and consistently promoted dangerous anti-Semitic rhetoric that directly threatens our community, said disgusted Cornell student Amanda Silberstein. For a university that claims to value inclusion and the safety for all students, this decision is not just tone deaf, it's profoundly alienating, said Silberstein, who's a 21-year-old junior. By inviting someone who with such a deeply troubling history of anti-Semitism to headline one of our most high-profile campus events, Cornell is sending a message that Jewish safety and well-being are negotiable. The watchdog group Stop Anti-Semitism agreed that the invitation is beyond the pale and previously highlighted the performer's anti-Israel and anti-Semitic views in a July 12th, 2024 post, saying Kalani supports the terrorist regime Hamas under the guise of resistance. It cited her Next to You music video that admired the Palestinian terror group's violence against Israelis on October 7, 2023, opening her song with, again, Long Live the Intifada, appearing across the screen and featuring dancers waving Palestinian flags. The group noted Kalani refused to condemn Hamas for the massacre of Israeli civilians that day. Instead, Kalani directly called for the destruction of Israel and its people, the group reported. Kalani doubles down on her support for the global call to murder Jews by sharing genocidal phrases such as "Long live the resistance" and "From the river to the sea." The singer also shared a map on Instagram that eliminates the state of Israel, and she touted several posts and uttered rants, including "Zionists are all evil" and "Zionists are the scum of the earth." So Cornell, I guess, doubling down, sending a clear message of where they stand in this fight with the Trump administration. Stop Anti-Semitism founder Lorori Rez said now Cornell is doubling down by featuring vile Jew hater Kalani as a headliner for their end of the year celebration. So, I guess not scared of the potential loss of federal money. Cornell inviting what they are describing as a, quote, vile Jew hater Kalani to perform on campus. Also, the Trump administration plans to pull $1 billion in funding from Harvard amid this clash with the university. The Wall Street Journal reported that the $1 billion is related to the elite Massachusetts Ivy League schools' health research funding. The latest report comes just days after the White House asked the IRS to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status over its alleged failure to address anti-Semitism on campus. In March, the Justice Department began a comprehensive review of the school's federal contracts and government-funded grants. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, canceled $2.7 million in DHS grants to the university. In a recent social media post, Trump claimed that Harvard has lost its way and didn't deserve federal funding. Now, you would think Cornell would be watching what's going on at Harvard and maybe think twice about inviting Kalani to perform at their end of the school year celebration. But I think they're sending a clear message in that decision to book her. But Trump said Harvard has been hiring almost all woke, radical left idiots and bird brains who are only capable of teaching failure to students and so-called future leaders. Look just to the recent past at their plagiarizing president who so greatly embarrassed Harvard before the United States Congress. Harvard is a joke, teaches hate and stupidity, and should no longer receive federal funds. Now, according to Carter Stewart, who's a major in classics, I'm not sure what that is, and also a campus Republican leader, said, in my personal opinion, it's that Harvard kind of deserves everything that's happened. everything that is coming to it. I think Harvard is faced with a choice, and it seems like they're making the wrong choice, which is to double down on those crazy ideas that most Americans don't agree with and to pay that price for it. So I think it's a good thing that Harvard's being forced to put its money where its mouth is. So Cornell could be next. As we had learned in the past, they were being investigated for anti-Semitism, but now looking as if they're doubling down by inviting Kalani, who is known for her anti-Semitic rhetoric, and this coming off the heels of, as I said, Harvard having $1 billion of funding pulled by the federal government. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. I don't want to run too late. I see some comments, some waves coming in. If you are joining us, the breaking news story from early this morning, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. And I know that comes as quite a surprise because many of us saw him meet with J.D. Vance on Easter Sunday. The Pope gifting J.D. Vance some gifts for his children. So Pope Francis passing away at the age of 88. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
When you're running, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Haley Livingston, Big Fox News, Corning, New York.
Big Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Again, if you are just joining us, it was announced early this morning that Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. That is the breaking story this morning. Let's go to a viewer's comment. Frank, I believe that the new Corning Paint and Post school budget is coming up and taxes will be going up by nearly 8%. Are you kidding me? The board office is full of overpaid administrators, and there are 3 admins at the board office making well over $100,000 annually. Drive by the middle schools. The middle school is in the process of getting a new turf football field and a new turf softball field and new tennis courts. There's a very expensive new lacrosse field at the Irwin Valley School that the contractor finished last year, and I hear now can't be used due to its poor quality. And the school district is renting the small fry football field for spring sports. There, I hear there's also considerable construction going on at the high school fields, but I have not confirmed that yet. Who is managing this out-of-control mess? But with all of the current utility hikes and the current 401k issues, she must be crazy to think that any normal person is going to vote yes vote no. Yes, we're going to be talking about the school budget later on. That is coming up shortly. I've already heard many complaints, many concerns. We'll get you more information on it, but I think this person's statement of voting no seems to be a common refrain from people that I've heard that attended some of these budget meetings and also have seen the budget. The costs exorbitant. So thank you for that statement. Okay, we were talking about Harvard. Victor Davis Hanson says Harvard University has rejected various demands of a presidential commission on anti-Semitism. The task force wants to persuade Harvard to ensure Jewish students on its campus are no longer harassed or else lose its federal funding. Harvard retorts that it won't be bullied by Washington. Among its other requirements, the Trump administration also warned Harvard to cease using race as a criterion in its admissions, hiring, and promotion, contrary to law. It has also directed the campus to ban the use of masks that, in the post-COVID era of protests, have emboldened violent demonstrators with anonymity. The administration's order to stop race-based bias was in accordance with civil rights statutes and a recent Supreme Court decision specifically banning affirmative action at Harvard and elsewhere. No matter, Harvard claimed that the Trump administration infringed upon its First Amendment rights, so it has temporarily rejected the administration's orders. At least for now, Harvard has lost its annual $2.2 billion grant of federal funds. Former President Barack Obama, among others, lauded Harvard's rejection of the demand of the administration's anti-Semitism task force. He claimed the Trump administration's efforts were ham-handed. But what academic freedom are Harvard and Obama talking about? The freedom to discriminate and segregate by race in hiring, admissions, dorms, and graduations? The freedom of 500 Harvard students to crash the classes of others, shut down traffic, and harass students on the basis of their religion or views on Israel? Despite all of Harvard's platitudes, its classrooms are still being disrupted. Jewish students remain fearful. And what would Obama say if, for example, African-American students at Harvard were harassed on campus by masked disruptors? Or black studies classes were crashed by students wearing scars over their face as they vented their hatred? Would he press the Trump administration to force Harvard to honor federal civil rights protections? Remember, Harvard is a private university with a largely untaxed endowment of over $50.2 billion. Yet again, it still receives some $2.2 billion, now suspended, in federal funds. The administration task force is not forcing Harvard to run its university according to its version of federal dictates. Instead, the Trump administration is simply warning Harvard that if, in addition to its huge source of private funding, it still wishes the continuance of some $2.2 billion in public money from the federal government, then it must comply with existing laws and executive orders. Does Harvard remember the embarrassing testimony of its former president, Claudine Gay? And one of the reasons why Elise Stefanik, who we talked about last week with the potential of her running for governor, the reason she has the name recognition is because she did such a great job during these hearings on college campus anti-Semitism. But I'll continue. Claudine Gay, she failed to assure a congressional committee that Harvard had taken action against openly hostile anti-Semitic student protesters during its growing protest movements. Does Harvard understand why the Supreme Court ruled it had violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and was culpable of prejudice against Asian Americans? Does Harvard have any clue why it lost some $150 million in alumni giving? Does Harvard realize that no one believes its pretenses anymore that it cannot and will not tolerate disruption of classes, given that it still happens all the time in its various professional schools and undergraduate courses? Perhaps Harvard should follow the strategy of independent Hillsdale College, which long ago wished to be free of federal dictates. So unlike Harvard, the college put its proverbial money where its mouth was and agreed unilaterally to give up all federal funding to be free of Washington's tentacles. Yet there is one critical distinction between Hillsdale and Harvard. Hillsdale does not take federal money, period, doled out by either a Democrat or Republican administration. It sincerely believes that too often the federal government itself does not follow the Constitution, impinges on freedom, and forces colleges to violate equality under the law when discriminating by race and gender. Harvard has no such principles. Its beef is not with the notion of an overweening federal government, eager to coerce private colleges to follow particular protocols. Instead, it is at war only with the Trump administration, or in theory, any other similar conservative administration that might wish it to adhere to the law as a condition of being federally funded. Otherwise, Harvard has no problem with an activist federal government as long as it is a liberal one, forcing all sorts of Title IX and DEI initiatives on private and Christian colleges that apparently lost any kind of say by accepting federal money. It has said nothing when state and federal governments in the past gratuitously hounded Hillsdale. Harvard loudly can set itself free by permanently pursuing its agenda on its own $50 billion endowment in the same manner Hillsdale does quietly with its $1 billion, without the taxpayer's dime, whether Democrat or Republican. So that's Victor Davis Hanson. We've got a couple New York State updates because last week I had someone ask about the climate change super fund that Governor Hochul signed into law. We've got an update from Lee Zeldin blasting the new green energy laws. We're going to talk a little bit about the New York State budget. We do have a couple of updates here about the Democrat Party. Last week, there was a lot of talk about AOC and kind of her rise in popularity, and could she be the next president of the United States? Many people are speculating that she will run in 2028. Many saying that she is the face of the Democratic Party. So we're going to talk about the Democrat Party, some other potential candidates, and of course, Senator Van Hollen, who is trying to, I guess, for lack of a better term, make a name for himself, and that is by defending the illegal immigrant who was sent to El Salvador, Garcia. We're going to talk about what he did over the weekend, of course, meeting with Garcia, the president of El Salvador, highlighting that they were sharing margaritas. Now, Van Hollen has denied that. We're going to talk about that as well. But if you are just joining us, the breaking news story from early this morning: Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. I know that comes as a surprise to all of us who watched what he looked healthy when he was meeting with J.D. Vance, but the Pope has passed away. Coming up a little bit later on in the program, we're going to be talking with Chris Sharman, the executive director of CSS Workforce. They have a job fair coming up at CCC. We're going to learn all about it, how we can best be prepared to attend the job fair. So stay tuned. That'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. When we come back, some New York State issues. Then we'll talk about the Democrat Party. Then we'll talk about Garcia and Van Hollen. All that and much more. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that? And our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community. Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Again, the breaking story from overnight: Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I hope you had an enjoyable Easter weekend. I did. I hope you did too. My immediate thought on Hegseth is that it's a hit job, but I'm waiting to hear more and see how it shakes out. It would be extremely careless and foolish if it's factual. If you did not hear, it is being reported that there was another Signal app conversation where Hegseth shared sensitive information with some of his family members, with his personal lawyer. So who would release that? You've got to assume, unless they're investigating every conversation he's having, yes, it would be careless, that's for sure. A lot going on around Hegseth, a lot of questions. Do you think he will last? Do you think Trump stands firm with him? Or do you think they start to look in other directions? That's kind of the question this morning. So moving along here, Environmental Protection Agency Administrator and former gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin slammed New York's Climate Act, which was advanced by Governor Hochul and New York Democrats. He called it delusional and a left-wing recipe for an energy and economic catastrophe. Now, this comes after the Trump administration last week halted the Empire Wind Power Project off of the New York-New Jersey coast, a setback to the state's efforts to meet emissions reduction mandates under its much-criticized green energy law. Zeldin told the New York Post, New York's lofty climate goals don't come equipped with any feasible plan to actually achieve them. The consequence is that most people who can least afford the economic pain are the ones who get targeted and harmed the most. New York foolishly banned the safe extraction of natural gas hookups on new building construction, and gas stoves, while pushing to eliminate the sale of gas-powered vehicles and blocking new pipeline construction, he stated. This is a left-wing recipe for an energy and economic catastrophe. The idea that we can replace baseload forms of power with intermittent power like wind is simply delusional. Other mainstream energy experts agree that New York has to rework the climate law to make it more practical and less reliant on solar and wind energy, and to axe unattainable mandates to go carbon emissions free. We've talked about how there's just no way the grid can handle this. There's just no way we are going to be to these goals the Hochul has set out. We've talked about it numerous times with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. But under Hochul and Albany's plan, New York must reduce greenhouse gas emissions 40% by 2030 and have 100% zero-emission electricity by 2040. Rules require the Empire State to generate 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind energy by 2035, 6,000 megawatts of solar energy by 2025, and 3,000 megawatts of energy storage by 2030. John Howard, former interim chairman of the Public Service Commission, says time to go back to the drawing board. We can flap our arms. It doesn't mean we're going to fly, Howard said. Let's face reality. Now, the Climate Act was approved by then-Governor Andrew Cuomo and the Democratic-run legislature in 2019. He said the law was well-intentioned but overly optimistic, even naive. Howard said the circumstances have changed. Let's figure out what we're going to do. To complicate things further, the favorable tax credits for renewable energy to promote solar and wind power might be slashed or eliminated entirely in the next budget approved by President Trump and the Republican-run Congress. New York residents may soon feel the results of the climate law in their wallets as well. What else is new? Utility giant Con Edison recently proposed double-digit rate hikes for gas and energy bills, blaming the hikes partially on the cost of complying with green mandates. And we've all talked about NYSEG and what we're dealing with locally. New York Democrats have joined Republicans in urging the governor to pump the brakes on the timeline, forcing New Yorkers to switch from gas-powered cars to emission-free electronic vehicles, which is kind of ironic as we see a time when the Teslas are being destroyed because of the political leanings of Elon Musk. So electric vehicles supported in the past, now hated by those same people. Quite a switch, a complete 180. But New Yorkers are also lining up in opposition to dozens of new lithium-ion battery energy storage facilities planned across the Big Apple and beyond over fears they could spark toxic infernos in residential neighborhoods. And we've had that happen locally as well, meaning the pushback, the protest against these lithium-ion battery energy storage facilities. There needs to be an honest discussion about the energy mandates and whether they are real or not, said Gavin Donahue, president and CEO of the Independent Power Producers of New York. There needs to be an honest discussion on the impracticality of the law. Donahue, who served on the state's Climate Action Council, complained there wasn't a rigorous analysis of whether the deadlines to transition away from fossil fuel to renewables such as solar and wind were achievable. Quote, we have a state that doesn't issue permits for fossil fuels. Hochul on Sunday was non-committal about amending the Climate Act, which would almost certainly face backlash from left-wing environmentalists. She criticized the Trump team's decision to suspend the Empire Wind project that was previously approved and in construction. Quote, the governor has led by example New York's ongoing transition to a clean energy economy. We have one of the cleanest grids in the nation, with 50% zero-emission electricity and our gold standard in reliability, said Hochul's spokesperson. The governor recognizes that we can only continue to serve as the good example if the lights stay on and costs are low. And she will use every tool at her disposal to ensure that that happens. And that includes the fully federal permitted Empire One wind project that the Trump administration is actively disrupting, putting thousands of jobs at risk, and having a detrimental impact on the safe, affordable, and reliable operation of the New York electric grid. Zeldin said, the Trump EPA understands that we can and must protect the environment and grow the economy. We are focused on protecting human health and the environment while powering the great American comeback. Now, Hochul defied that federal deadline to end the congestion toll. This is much like Governor Hochul has the fight in her. We'll put it that way. When it comes to corrections officers, willing to attack corrections officers. Also, how did she put it? Standing up, fighting back against the Trump administration so that you, the residents of New York that go into the city, have the right to pay a tax. Stands very strong with that tax. Governor Hochul said she has no plans on complying with a federal deadline to end the deeply unpopular congestion pricing scheme, saying defiantly that the cameras are staying on. The White House in February threatened to block the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the MTA, from collecting the $9 toll, which went into effect on January 5th for vehicles entering parts of Manhattan below 60th Street. As mentioned, it is very unpopular. It's very costly. The MTA filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration that month, with the city and state's transportation later piling on and joining the legal action. Quote, despite the administration's royal decree, its effort to unilaterally overturn the solution to the city's congestion enacted by New York elected representatives is unlawful and invalid, they stated. City Mayor Eric Adams voiced his support of the lawsuit as New York barreled toward the April 20th deadline last week. The White House has declined to specify what, if anything, will happen if New York ignored the deadline. The agency earlier this month posted on X it would not hesitate to use every tool at our disposal to shut the tolls down if the state didn't comply, but refused to provide specifics. The White House previously demanded the MTA stop collecting tolls on March the 21st, but Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced before the deadline that the U.S. DOT granted a 30-day extension through Sunday as negotiations continued. In a statement to the Post, MTA Chief Policy and External Relations John McCarthy said, in case there were any doubts, MTA, state, and city reaffirmed in a court filing that congestion pricing is here to stay and that the arguments Secretary Duffy made trying to stop it have zero merit. So there's an update. We've got an update on some other New York State issues as well. If you are just joining us, the breaking news this morning, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88 after having the respiratory issues for quite some time, passing away early this morning. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, we're also going to be talking with Chris Sharman. Keep that in mind. You'll learn all about the upcoming job fair at CCC. But right now, we got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website. The Twins' first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors, Dante, Haley, and Ann. Find out what's happening in your community and more by watching Big Fox 10 p.m. news on W.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Again, breaking news from overnight. Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. Which comes as a surprise for many as we saw him looking quite healthy, meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance on Easter Sunday. Okay, continuing with New York State issues, but this specifically for the city, but still I think worth mentioning. Andrew Cuomo has threatened a lawsuit against the sexual harassment accuser, the person that accused him of sexual harassment, Charlotte Bennett, before New York can pass law blocking cases targeting alleged victims. Let me give you a little more information on this. Ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo has filed new court papers threatening a defamation suit against sexual harassment accuser Charlotte Bennett before Albany could pass a law to hinder such cases targeting alleged victims. Now, we know in the past he was using taxpayer funding to keep these lawsuits going. Well, this document filed in Manhattan Supreme Court on Friday is re-upping his notice of claim to sue Bennett and her lawyer, Deborah Katz, for issuing damning statements against the former governor turned mayoral candidate, even after Bennett voluntarily dismissed her lawsuit against him in federal court in December, saying that she could no longer afford to go against Cuomo because Cuomo able to use, I know it's shocking and people don't believe me, but be able to use taxpayer dollars because he was accused of the sexual harassment while governor. Bennett reposted her agent's tweet, which has garnered more than 90,000 views, was false and defamatory, and Bennett made it knowing full well that it was false and intending to cause harm to Governor Cuomo, said the lawsuit. An investigative report commissioned by State Attorney General Letitia James has found that Cuomo engaged in misconduct against as many as 11 women, including Bennett and a state trooper, but the new legal papers claim the probe was a hit job and none of the accusations have held up in civil or criminal court. Cuomo's lawyer said, quote, despite Bennett's gamesmanship and withdrawing her federal lawsuit before she was required to admit under oath that she had lied about her interactions with Governor Cuomo fully intends to clear his name and to ensure that Bennett and her agents never again repeat the falsehood that he sexually harassed Bennett. On the same day, the new legal notice was filed. It surfaced that the state had settled a suit Bennett slapped against New York, claiming it failed to protect her. The taxpayer-funded settlement was for $450,000. Part of a more than $9 million tab shelled out to defend Cuomo and the state against Bennett's claim. Yes, $9 million of taxpayer funding. Cuomo had previously filed a notice threatening to sue Bennett, and his latest move was re-upping that threat. The legal maneuver appeared to be a marked departure from comments he made in February of 2021 when he said, quote, I never intended to offend anyone or cause any harm. I now understand that I acted in a way that made people feel uncomfortable. It was unintentional, and I truly and deeply apologize for it. I feel awful about it, and frankly, I'm embarrassed by it, and that's not easy to say, but that's the truth. So again, Andrew Cuomo threatens a lawsuit against Charlotte Bennett before New York could pass a law which blocks cases targeting alleged victims. Now, as of right now, what we're learning is Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mamdani are leading the pack in the Democrat primary for New York City mayor. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. I just realized that we have to nearly wrap up hour number one. Stay with us. Get those comments in. A little quiet this morning. That's okay. We've had some great comments coming in. We were very busy with comments on Thursday's show. So maybe you're all settling in after that long weekend. As I said, coming up in a little bit, we'll hear from Chris Sharman, the executive director of CSS Workforce New York. So make sure you stay tuned for that. That's in the 7 o'clock hour. Right now, we need to take a break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
I have lived here now for 3.5 years. I decided to become an ambassador because I understood how difficult it was for some people to get adjusted. Trying to get people involved in the community so that they can have some friends. I think the worst thing in the world is not to have a friend. So when you come here and you don't know anyone, it's really important that you get them connected with somebody else in a hurry. And so I wanted to make that easier for people when they came in.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Thank you again to Boss Security for bringing us the Frankly Speaking roof cam. That beautiful view of historic Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you again for joining us as we wrap up our number one. Again, the breaking story Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88 years old. That coming in late last night or early this morning, depending on how you want to look at it. We were talking about Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, the front runner in the mayoral race. He has the backing, get this, former Governor Cuomo, disgraced Governor Cuomo, the backing of 45% of Democrats. The survey was conducted after Mayor Eric Adams announced that he will not run in the Democratic primary and instead will seek re-election on his own independent ballot line, which many are calling a mistake, arguing it is a mistake. Cuomo's support increased by 4 percentage points from 41% last month to 45% in April, according to the poll. The next closest person is Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani's support also jumped by 4 percentage points, an increase from 18% to 22% in April, putting him in second place and as the only other candidate aside from Cuomo to reach double digits. He is an avowed far-left kind of socialist candidate, but Cuomo standing at 45% with Mamdani at 18%. So when people said, you really think he's going to get the mayor's job, I think the answer is pretty clear that he will, which is hard to believe after not just the sexual harassment scandals that we've talked about, but also, of course, making what is considered, at least by myself, as the most disastrous decision during COVID, tragically putting in COVID-positive patients in nursing homes in our most vulnerable community, leading to untold amount of death, and never owning up to it, never apologizing, never admitting his mistake, quite the opposite, fighting and supporting the decision, suggesting it was somehow Trump's fault, which never quite added up. But Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, looking as if he will be victorious. But your thoughts? There's still a lot of time before Election Day. Now, Guardian Angels founder Curtis, I can never pronounce his name, Sliwa, is the Republican nominee for mayor, and lawyer Jim Walden is seeking an independent ballot line. All right, we got to take a break. Hour number 1 in the books. Boy, that went quick. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us. A lot to cover, a lot to discuss. A little bit here about the Democratic Party. And we also want to talk about the Van Hollen trip to meet with Abrego Garcia, an alleged MS-13 member in El Salvador. We'll talk about that as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Hour number 2 Well, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. As mentioned, the breaking story from overnight, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88 years old. Cardinal Kevin Farrell announcing, "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with faithfulness, courage, and universal love, especially for the poorest and most marginalized. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of God, one and tribune." Okay. Well, a lot of comments coming in. Sorry, we'll get to those after the next break. We are also going to hear from Chris Sharman here in just a little bit about the upcoming job fair at CCC. You won't want to miss that. Comment from a viewer: Hochul energy mandate is merely shifting the energy cost to the mining industry in the form of battery production, copper for the motors, wiring, solar power, raw materials, etc., and away from the petroleum industry, ultimately causing expensive charging, trucking, manufacturing, energy issues, and other countless ones, causing ultimately more to leave New York and those left in the wake to pay for it. New York may go from the Empire State to the fallen Empire State. Thank you very much. Okay, a couple things here. Oh, did you see that Biden was snubbed? Online, the Democratic Party celebrated Easter on social media by taking a stroll down memory lane at the White House. Some of their posts snubbing the party's most recent president, Joe Biden. On Sunday morning, the Democrats' official X account told its followers Happy Easter while sharing photos of former President Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, and John F. Kennedy during the Easter celebrations at the White House with their spouses and children. But as some conservative critics point out, Biden was left out of the post. The Democrats' account on the liberal-dominated platform Blue Sky made the same post without showing a photo of Biden. However, the party's account on Facebook and Instagram did include Biden, showing them in chronological order, prominently showcasing the JFK photo first, while Biden's photo appeared last. According to the X Help Center, users can select 1 through 4 photos to post at once. Blue Sky also limits its users to a 4-image maximum per post. In both instances, one of the 5 presidents in the Facebook and Instagram posts wouldn't make the cut. So, not pictured, Joe Biden getting snubbed by the Democrat Party. Love that the Gen Z staffers running the account are more fond of Jimmy Carter than Joe Biden, said Matt Whitlock. Now, the New York Post is suggesting that here's an idea, Joe Biden. What if you charge $300,000 not to speak? This is the New York Post. Now, if you've been following along, Joe Biden wants $300,000 for these big ticket events where he will give a speech. Very few takers, not too many people taking him up on that. And as the Post said, we can't say that we're shocked. Biden's been a faux pas factory for literally decades. Add in his endless lies and embellishment, like when he said he got arrested for meeting with Nelson Mandela, or you remember the what was it, corn pop or cornflake stories? I can't remember the exact name. When he talked about his uncle being shot down and crashing in New Guinea, where he had been then eaten by cannibals. Remember that story? And that doesn't even begin to cover the whole outright dementia thing. Joe went from a floundering fabulist to a full-on space case in just 4 short years, culminating with a debate performance against Donald Trump so incomprehensible that top Democrats had to force him to drop out of the race in order to avoid an epic down-ballot loss. Unless you think it was due to the pressure cooker life of a president, he's still at it. Just last week, he called, he said some outdated terms in regards to race. So here's a free business idea, Joe, says the New York Post. No one's going to pay you $300,000 to speak at their black tie affairs. That's almost as crazy as how much Hunter Biden was charging for his quote-unquote art. But that might well pay you not to speak. The pitch is simple. Hand over a cool million or I grab the mic. Talk about how I was the first man on the moon. Drop a few old guy slurs. Have a freeze up on stage and then wander off into the night. There's not an NGO, trade association, or Democrat political campaign in America that can resist that offer at any price, says the New York Post. Now, we mentioned quickly on the program on Friday that David Hogg is suggesting that what he calls kind of weak Democrats be primary. Now, David Hogg is, I think, vice chair, something like that, of the DNC. Well, he suggested that the people that he considers wishy-washy Democrats be primaried. But Democrat House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries rejected a Democratic National Committee big controversial plan to fund primary challenges against passive party members in safe districts. Jeffries of New York State, of course, instead touted his intent to back all House Democrat incumbents across the country in the 2026 cycle and push the party to focus on knocking off Republicans. Quote, I look forward to standing behind every single Democrat incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between, said Jeffries. They're working hard in their communities, rising to the occasion. Now, there's been a lot of criticism of Hakeem Jeffries, people thinking he is, and the Democrat Party, that he's not doing enough in the quote-unquote resistance to Donald Trump. But last week, Hogg, who has been serving as one of the 3 DNC vice chairs since February, announced that his organization, called Leaders We Deserve, will pump out $20 million to challenge low-key House Democrat incumbents in favor of more combative contenders. And this is why AOC has been getting so much attention. This is what the Democrat Party is demanding, this kind of far-left radicalism. That's why you see, even at the local level, these constant protests against Trump, the empty town hall, or whatever they're calling that, or empty seat town hall that they've been pushing, and these constant protests. As I said, I don't know when they start to get a little old. I mean, last week alone, I think there was 3 before, and I think there was one Saturday. So you'd have 4 protests against the Trump administration and Elon Musk in 1 week. I don't know when you run out of time to go to all these protests, when you say enough is enough. But as you can see, the Democrat Party demanding this kind of resistance. That's why Gretchen Whitmer last week had so much criticism, because she had the audacity to meet with the Trump administration to try to get things accomplished for her state. That's not what the left wants. CNN calling her out, saying that obviously she's not the face of the resistance any longer. And that's why you have David Hogg talking about primarying what they call kind of the weak Democrats out there. Hogg intends to refrain from meddling in contests and battleground district primaries so that Democrats can prioritize winning there. His move has alienated many Democrats who feel it's inappropriate for someone in his position to meddle in primaries. Typically, leaders at the DNC and Republican National Committee are expected to remain neutral in primary contests rather than put their thumb on the scale, and that's kind of historically been the case. But Hogg has argued that many Democrats, quote, are asleep at the wheel and are not meeting the moment, which is why he wants to intervene in primaries, something that DNC Chairman Ken Martin has not endorsed. Jeffries said, I'm going to really focus on trying to defeat Republican incumbents so that we could take back control of the House of Representatives and begin the process of ending this national nightmare that's being visited upon us by far-right extremists. Democrats are hoping to retake the House in 2026, as you are aware. Jeffries saying, we're going to continue to make clear that the cost of living in the United States of America is too high. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to lower the cost of living. In fact, on day one, costs aren't going down, they are going up. Hogg defended his plan to target safe seat incumbent Democrats, arguing, quote, we have to be a party that doesn't have a 27% approval rating from our own base. Now, former acting DNC chairwoman Donna Brazile, who you remember famously fed some of the questions for a town hall to Hillary Clinton when she was facing Bernie Sanders, said many of them are seats that women and minorities finally had an opportunity to come and sit in because there were no seats at the table for us. So before you start wiping clean the menu and the plates and the seats, be very careful, said Hogg. And to kind of put his money where his mouth is, Hogg donated $100,000 to the DCCC. The news, which was first reported by Politico and Axios, was confirmed by Hogg, where he asserted that he wasn't playing nice by handing the six-figure donation over to the DCCC. This is not me trying to play nice. It is demonstrating my commitment to winning back the House and making Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker, which is an absolute imperative. Now, the DCCC is Democratic National Committee, or excuse me, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Quote, but we need a better Democratic Party and need to get rid of the Democrats in safe seats who do not understand what is at stake right now, who are asleep at the wheel, not meeting the moment, and are a liability now and to the future of our party. We absolutely cannot wait for people to retire at their own leisure or to let them sit there and do nothing while the country is burning. Now, Hogg originally announced that his organization, Leaders We Deserve, planned to dedicate $20 million to electing younger primary candidates against older incumbents. The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting survivor predicted that some incumbents will rise to the challenge and emerge stronger due to the initiative. Others will demonstrate why they should be replaced. Either way, we all win, especially when we are not challenging frontline Democratic incumbents. We all want the House back. Now, last week we talked extensively about AOC and her rise in popularity. Bill Maher over the weekend criticizing her. We'll talk a little bit about that. We do have to take a short break. I see some comments coming in. After this break, we'll read your comments. And then in the next segment, we'll be talking with Chris Sharman, the executive director of CSS Workforce New York, to hear about the upcoming job fair at CCC, which is this Wednesday. But again, next segment, reading your comments, talking about some other topics as well. We want to talk about Senator Van Hollen and his trip to El Salvador, the photo op. I just don't, I know I said it extensively last week. I don't know how this will be successful for him, how you stand with Garcia. He's even at this point, Senator Van Hollen asking Republicans not to bring up Garcia's background and his history. Because remember, it was reported last week that he is a serial wife abuser. A lot of people pointing to some of the tattoos he had on in that photo as more proof of his connection to MS-13. We'll talk about that. But of course, a big breaking story from early this morning. Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. Let's take that short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
CSS Workforce invites you to the 2025 Regional Job Fair at SUNY Corning Community College, Wednesday, April 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Area employers with immediate full-time, part-time, and internship opportunities will be on hand with many conducting on-site interviews. It's free and open to the public, so bring an ample supply of resumes and dress for success. Explore, network, and upgrade your career at the Regional Job Fair inside the gymnasium at SUNY Corning Community College. Academic Drive in Corning, Wednesday, April 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You're faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
Big Fox 10 PM News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Again, the breaking story from overnight, Pope Francis passing away at the age of 88. Let's go to some viewer comments. It absolutely sickens me to think that Andrew Cuomo could actually be victorious in his latest endeavor. Are we seriously that forgetful? He's a corrupt crook and greedy con artist that could probably make it in Hollywood. I don't, that's the thing. That's New York City. So left, far left, that yes, it does look as if he will be elected, and how quickly, like you say, we forget. And it's not us, of course, it's the residents of the city, but they're so far left, they think that there's a benefit, I don't know what that is, in having former Governor Cuomo as mayor. But boy, as of right now, if you look at the polls, no one's even near him. So I don't see a scenario where at the end of the day he is not mayor, but perhaps I'm jaded and have lost faith in many voters. All right, comment from a different viewer. Oh, this is from Ken. Good morning, Ken. Did you make it? Did you not watch any of the Sunday shows, Ken? Ken says, paraphrasing and augmenting what Senator Van Hollen stated, the problem of the MS-13 dirtbag that did not get his due process rights is bigger than just him. Due process rights are also applicable to the other illegal immigrants living in the U.S. It seems obvious to me that the Dems are making this an issue to slow down the deportation of the illegal immigrants, to buy time and get them voting. How long could it take to deport 20 million illegals? The below figures are all the highest numbers I could find on the internet. So theoretically, it would be the fastest deportations possible. 20 million illegals, 700 immigration judges, 71 immigration courts. Each judge sees 4 cases a day, assuming each judge works 200 days a year. That's 700 times 4 times 200 equals 560,000 deportations a year. 20 million divided by 560,000, 35.7 years to get them all deported. The bottom line is that the illegal immigrants are here to stay, and the Dems will work to get them voting, legally or illegally. The most we can hope for during the Trump administration is to get the bulk of the criminals and terrorists out of the country and letting very few illegals back in. Thank you, Ken. We're going to talk about that. I saw that Alito blasted the unprecedented move by the Supreme Court to halt Trump's Venezuelan deportations. He called it legally questionable. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Comment from a different viewer, though. The song remains the same. Who is running Biden? It's got to be, Jill and Hunter probably want the money, and that's why they're putting up the $300,000 fee for him to give a speech. We know that his speech last week did not go well, so not a lot of people are willing to fork over $300,000 for him to give a speech. Comment from a different viewer. Morning, Frank. Just a thought. I don't know if you want to diverge into a discussion about a Democrat oligarchy. However, here in New York State, the behind-the-scenes liberals have been silently pushing their crazy agendas for decades, leaving their public puppets, their talking heads, to face the music. On the federal level, there exists the House, the Senate, and the White House. When the Democrats are in control, no mention of an oligarchy exists. However, now that the Republicans are in control, desperate Democrats cry oligarchy in a hopeful, hypocritical attempt to discredit the current, overwhelmingly elected administration. So could someone explain to me how the meaning of an oligarchy has been applied to the federal government, but not the New York State government? Very good point. Thank you for that comment. I just want to quickly mention a couple more Democrat issues, and then we're going to move along. But Bill Maher mocked AOC, Bernie, Cory Booker, saying he asked his guests, what do you think of the fact that people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. And then he was interrupted by a single person in the audience clapping, to which Maher joked, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. But I feel like big crowds, again, these shiny objects that the Democrats chase, it's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking at a festival or wherever they are, because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker from my home state of New Jersey made a speech for 25 hours. This is just not what's going to get the job done. And so then he asked Democrat Senator Tina Smith, you don't really think AOC should be the candidate, do you? Meaning for president. Senator Smith demurred from the question and said it wasn't her job to pick Democrat nominees, to which Bill Maher responded, oh, it's mine, and it's not. It shouldn't be her. It shouldn't be her. So he is saying AOC should not be the Democrat nominee in 2028, despite all the recent hype. Your thoughts on that? Boy, they're going to push him now. They're going to push AOC because that's been like he said, a shiny object. You have so many people attending her rallies that they're looking at this as maybe the fresh face of the Democrat ticket, Democrat Party. A lot of Republicans are saying that would be great if she was in that kind of leadership position, that it would be an easy race. I don't know. Very popular. James Carville, the Raging Cajun, said he thinks HBO host Bill Maher was fooled by President Trump. See what happens when you go against the party? I think the problem that people have with Bill Maher, I have the same one, is that you kind of are leading legitimacy and credence to this, meaning the Trump administration, normalizing Trump. I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him, is what Bill Maher said to his audience about Trump. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them the way I was able to talk with Donald Trump. This is just how it went down. Make of it what you will. I feel it's emblematic of why the Democrats are so unpopular these days. So Carville saying that he had been duped. I think Bill Maher was had. He went there and talked about how charming, nice Trump was. This was the same guy that day who was reveling in a guy who was illegally deported to El Salvador and refuses to bring him back, who loves to hurt people, loves to inflict pain. But you know, Bill is just the latest in a whole series of people who get had by the personal charm, if you will, of some really bad people. I think Maher's a supremely naive man. That's what happened. Well, we saw it with Gretchen Whitmer. That's why she tried to hide behind the folders, because her party turning on her, because she had the audacity to meet with Trump and try to help her constituents. All right, by the way, if you're just joining us, the sad news this morning, breaking news, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. I know, coming as a surprise to many, because we saw him meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance just really hours before. Now, coming up in the next segment, we're going to hear from Chris Sharman. He's the executive director of CSS Workforce New York. They've got a regional job fair coming up on Wednesday at CCC. We're going to learn all about it. Coming up next, stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
The Twins' first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors, Dante, Haley, and Ann. Find out what's happening in your community and more by watching Big Fox 10 p.m. News on
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio this morning, we're going to be talking about the regional job fair up at CCC. Chris, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me.
I've got a lot of questions. This is a huge event every year. It's always successful. How is the planning going for the job fair?
It's going well, but let me just tell everybody it's coming up this Wednesday.
This Wednesday.
April 23rd, and it's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. up at Corning Community College in the gym. And I'm glad we have that much space because we have over 70 businesses registered so far.
Wow. So
it's free and it's open to the public.
It's free, open to the public. You have 70 businesses plus. Yeah. You might need that full 11 to 2 p.m. You might want to get there as soon as the gates open.
We hope so. Yeah.
So to get that many people in the gym, it's a perfect location with 70 participants. What should people know that are looking to attend, where they can find out about the participants, but also what they should bring with them?
Yeah, really good question. Mm-hmm. Let me first say that this is a real partnership and a collaboration to put an event like this on. Mm-hmm. So Corning Community College hosts this event. They also really help to plan it. Mm-hmm. And also GST BOCES, or Greater Southern Tier BOCES, New York State Department of Labor, and then Chemung Scholars to Men Workforce New York, which is my organization.
So it's a team.
So it's a team. It's a concerted effort. It's a great event each year. But in terms of people attending, I would encourage them to visit the website. Mm-hmm. They can see all the businesses represented, and if, without going into all the names here,
because we don't have the time.
Have that much time.
It's only a 2-hour show.
Okay, but they'll see at a quick glance that you have manufacturing, you have skilled trades, you have healthcare, you have banking and finance, you have business and clerical, even tourism-related jobs. So some employers will be looking to fill positions right away, but other ones are going to be concerned about what does my talent pool look like now and in the future.
Sure.
So they'll be collecting resumes, having those conversations with attendees. So it's just a really good opportunity for people to connect with local employers.
And then I'm thinking of attending. So I attend, I'm looking for a job, or I'm maybe thinking of moving my position, getting out of my current position. What should I bring with me? How should I come the most prepared?
Really good question. So I would say dress professionally, bring copies of that resume.
A lot of them.
Get ready to fill out applications, and do some research maybe in the companies you're interested in. If and that gives you the opportunity on the website to learn more about them, so you can ask targeted questions. But then most importantly, be ready to talk to them. Tell them about what you're looking for. See what kind of openings they have. Because there will be immediate job opportunities, but there's other things that could happen later on too. Sure. That's the great thing about events like this.
And back when I was in radio, I used to do the job fair every year, and I do think it's helpful to come with questions, because you don't want to get mixed up in something where it doesn't ultimately lead to a job you want, and the employer doesn't want to. No one wants to waste their time. Right. So if you come with those informed questions, like you said, I think it's better for everybody, and I think it makes this a successful event for all involved. So the list of participants is online at Corning Community College's website. I just searched Corning Community College Job Fair. That seems to come right up with the list.
Yes.
So that's one way of doing it, but you can find the full list of attendees there. So how long have you been working on this? How long was planning, do you think?
Well, the extended team, so we're just
not just you.
Team.
I know, I'm the whole team. I'm sorry.
So our team works, with the college, with GST BOCES and the Department of Labor, but it takes quite a while to put something like this together. But Corning Community College has been a great host. And we've had a regional job fair, as you know, for many years. But I believe it came back to Corning Community College in 2016 or 2017. And it's a great location for it. So.
If someone is on the fence, who would you say, just as we wrap up, who is this catered for? Who should attend this event?
Definitely for job seekers. But also people that, right? But also people that are actively looking, but maybe casually looking, because you have immediate needs in the area, right? There's always going to be a need for qualified and skilled workers,
right?
But there's also people that are casually looking, thinking of trying another career, and that what I want to remind people of is there's not just the employers, but other job services, other training opportunities, apprenticeships, training programs, some of which are funded. So they can look at other occupations and training. So that's another thing, too.
What a great.
And the last thing I would say, Frank, is on the website, people can pre-register, too.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So if they want to pre-register, that'll get them in the gym that much quicker. But rest assured, they can register in person if they show up as well.
Well, that's great. What a resource for our community. We should be really grateful that we have this right in our backyard.
Yeah, it's a great team that puts it together.
It really is. It's amazing. So again, it's this Wednesday, 11 till 2 p.m., right at the CCC Gymnasium, the regional job fair. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show. Best of luck. This is crunch time now.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Touchdown! Grab your Fox Sports app today.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street. According to a comment from Mark, he writes in, does this boss hog think that the people that voted for Trump are going to go back to the last 4 years of being broke and down and out? A vote for a Democrat is a vote for dollars going out the window. Thank you, Mark. Speaking to that, according to CNN, Democrats' crisis is beginning to play out in early Senate recruitment and first campaigns. Democrats panic over what they stand for and whether they can credibly compete beyond the bluest states is already erupting in the rush to recruit Senate candidates across the country for next year. A desperate effort to dig out from years of losses that have them far from power at a moment they need it most. Will Democrats indeed compete everywhere in 2026? Will leaders allocate money even in tough races? Or will they consolidate conservatively around their best bets? How will they handle What could be candidates who range from being angered with Bernie Sanders to occasionally voting with Donald Trump. Aligned with Bernie Sanders to occasionally voting with Donald Trump. Even this early out from the 2026 elections, these questions are all playing out against the toughest set of Senate races Democrats have faced in decades. Quote, on its face, the Senate map does not look great. But if this is a wave election, Democrats could compete in places they normally can't, said Jamie Harrison, who before his recently completed term as Democrat National Committee Chair ran for Senate in South Carolina in 2020. The goal has to be recruit a Democrat for every seat. So struggling to define their message. All they've got right now, it currently looks like, is anti-Trump. Now, America's second richest elected official, billionaire Governor J.D. Pritzker, according to the New York Times, looks or acts like he wants to be president. Billionaire Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois is one of the top Democrats being watched as the party searches for a way out of the political wilderness. While that sounds like President Trump, the two-term Illinois governor would be wagering on himself. Pritzker, an heir to the Hyatt hotel fortune, has become one of the most outspoken critics of Trump at a time Democrats are struggling to counter him. Wealth has long opened doors for Pritzker, and there are signs he wants the next one to be into the Oval Office. The 60-year-old is visiting New Hampshire, traditional home of the nation's first presidential primary, to speak April 27th at a party fundraiser about what he sees as Trump's authoritarianism and to call Democrats to action. The trip is likely to boost speculation that Pritzker, among those vetted by Kamala Harris's presidential campaign as a possible running mate, is interested in the 2028 nomination. Quote, there's no doubt that he is going to run, said Bill Daley, who served as Clinton's Commerce Secretary and Obama's Chief of Staff. The real question is whether he runs for re-election first or just runs for president. The governor, who declined an interview, has yet to say whether he will seek a third term. An announcement is expected in the first few months, with the March 2026 primary less than 11 months away. So JB, Pritzker, being eyed as the potential nominee. This is much of the talk going around AOC, of course. Now Bernie Sanders not being thrown around as a candidate, but the popularity of his and AOC's tour. So maybe Pritzker, maybe AOC. Your thoughts? Who will be their nominee? There seems to be a bit of a struggle to define the party. Now, high-ranking Democrat Jamie Raskin threatens various countries that support Trump, saying when we come back to power, we are not going to look kindly at them. Yes, Representative Jamie Raskin threatened foreign leaders who facilitated authoritarianism in our country by currying favor with President Trump on issues like deportation, saying that Democrats will not look kindly on his supporters when they come back to power. Wow, making threats already, assuming they will be back in power. Implicit in it should be the idea that if and when we come back to power, and we will, we are not going to look kindly upon people who facilitated authoritarianism in our country, said Raskin, specifically pointing towards El Salvador's President Bukele. So making the threats to these countries already, even though they lack the power. Now, Hakeem Jeffries, who is still trying to save his leadership position, because we know there's a lot of people pushing for his ouster, just like Chuck Schumer. He said on ABC's This Week that President Donald Trump was, quote, crashing the economy in real time. Well, we're going to continue to make clear that the cost of living in the United States of America is too high. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to lower the cost of living. In fact, on day one, costs aren't going down. They are going up. And they are crashing the economy in real time and, in fact, driving us towards a recession. Democrats have a different version or a different vision. We want to build an affordable economy for hardworking American taxpayers, and we're ready to work with anyone in good faith to get that done. But that's not occurring in the Congress right now, which is why things are headed in a bad direction. Now, we know they will not work. They cannot be seen working with Republicans. Look at it with a prime example of that would be Gretchen Whitmer. Just meeting with Trump, trying to do what's best for her constituents. And because she met with him, there are calls for her ouster as well. Jeffrey is saying, well, this week we'll be having a cost of living week of action, and we have to continue to talk to the American people about our plans. We recognize that housing costs are too high, grocery costs are too high, utility costs are too high, childcare costs are too high, insurance costs are too high. America is too expensive. Now Donald Trump is the president, and in terms of his approval as it relates to the economy, it was his biggest strength on January 20th. Now it's his greatest weakness. There are a variety of different polls that are out there, including most recently a Morning Consult poll that showed that congressional Democrats were actually trusted more than congressional Republicans on the economy for the first time in 4 years. We're going to continue to press our case on the economy, continue to press our case on protecting and strengthening Social Security, which is what we are committed to do. Republicans are trying to detonate Social Security as we know it, and certainly we're going to protect the health care of the American people. David Hogg, going back to him, was on ABC's this week as well, saying that the Trump administration was showing it did not care about the rule of law. Okay. Now, Trump did, for lack of a better word, troll Democrats in his Easter message. Did you happen to see this? Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, the mentally insane, and well-known MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back into our country. Trump also derided the weak and ineffective judges who have gotten in his way before turning his ire against Biden, who he blamed for stoking the border crisis, before wishing them all a happy Easter. Sleepy Joe Biden purposely allowed millions of criminals to enter our country totally unvetted and unchecked through an open borders policy that will go down in history as the single most calamitous act ever perpetrated upon America. But to him and to the person that ran and manipulated the auto pen, perhaps our real president, and to all the people who cheated in the 2020 presidential election in order to get this highly destructive moron elected, I wish you with great love, sincerity, and affection a very happy Easter. So happy Easter to all from the President of the United States. Now, he had mentioned the judges. Justice Samuel Alito dissented in the Supreme Court's decision on Saturday to block the Trump administration from deporting a group of Venezuelan migrants accused of being gang members under a rarely invoked 18th century wartime law, calling the court's order hastily and prematurely granted. In his 5-page dissent released on Saturday shortly before midnight, Justice Alito, joined by Justice Clarence Thomas, wrote that in his view, the court's decision to intervene overnight was not necessary or appropriate. The court's unsigned, one-paragraph order came after a fast-moving legal battle late Friday. The American Civil Liberties Union had rushed to several lower courts, then to the Supreme Court, claiming that the Trump administration was planning to deport more Venezuelan migrants, presumably to El Salvador, with little to no due process under the wartime law, the Aliens Enemies Act. The Supreme Court's decision ordered a pause on the deportation of the detainees while it considers the emergency application. The order suggested a deep skepticism on the court about whether the Trump administration should be trusted to live up to the key part of an earlier ruling that said detainees were entitled to be notified if the government intended to deport them under the law, quote, within a reasonable time, and in a way that would allow the deportees to challenge the move. In sum, literally in the middle of the night, the court issued unprecedented and legally questionable relief, said Justice Alito, without giving the lower courts a chance to rule, without hearing from the opposing party, within 8 hours of receiving the application, with dubious factual support for its order, and without providing any explanations for its order. Justice Alito said that he had refused to join the court's order because, quote, we had no good reason to think that, under the circumstances, issuing an order at midnight was necessary or appropriate. So prematurely granted an unprecedented emergency release. Alito continued to note that the Supreme Court issued this decision, though it was not clear that the court had jurisdiction. In sum, again, literally in the middle of the night, the court issued unprecedented and legally questionable relief without giving the lower courts a chance to rule, without hearing from the opposing party, within 8 hours of receiving the application with dubious factual support for its order. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll talk a little bit more about this. A lot to cover. If you are just joining us this morning, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88, coming off of his meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance on Easter Sunday. In the middle of the night, early Monday morning, it is announced that Pope Francis has passed away after that long respiratory issue. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Are you having trouble hearing your TV or listening to conversations in loud spaces? Then it might be time to consider Nano hearing aids. Don't mistake Nanos for cheap amplifiers. Nanos are FDA-registered OTC hearing aids, which means no more having to go to a doctor and spend thousands. Nano hearing aids are now offering $100 off through this special TV offer. Order right now and get 2 CIC rechargeable hearing aids for only $297. And if you're not happy, return them for a full refund.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers regarding the Democrats turning on their own. At least in this respect, they are true to their manifesto, meaning that those in charge of the Democrat Socialist Party control their affiliates with an iron fist. Be very afraid of these wannabe dictators who present themselves as outraged people who have been wronged. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer was at a local hardware store in Millerton. They were dropping prices. Their new shipments prices are down. Breaking news. Well, thank you. Comment from Ken. Ken says, I was unfortunately in New York City over the weekend again. I had the opportunity to ask a couple people what they thought about Hochul's congestion pricing. 1, they hate it. 2, they said that the MTA has had money dumped into it for years and it never fixed the system. Why do they think more money will do it now? 3, they said the traffic is definitely down in Manhattan, but since everyone parks just outside Manhattan and takes the subway in, the problem finding parking and the traffic just outside Manhattan has dramatically increased. And 4, they said if you want Manhattan to be less congested, stop building skyscrapers. Thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate that. So as I mentioned, Alito blasting the unprecedented Supreme Court move to halt Trump's Venezuelan deportations, calling it legally questionable. Many in the conservative movement, conservative influencers, erupted in fury at the Supreme Court for temporarily pumping the brakes on Trump's use of wartime powers to boot suspected migrant gang members. Despite the Supreme Court's 6-3 conservative to liberal composition, right-leaning critics within the MAGA faithful fumed against the panel, with some even suggesting that Trump should outright ignore it, a move that would usher in a constitutional crisis. Jesse Kelly said, ignore the Supreme Court. Arrest anyone who tries to enforce this ruling. Dissolve the Supreme Court entirely if they push. You can deport foreigners or you don't have a country anymore. There are no good choices now. Sean Davis contended, when we're done deporting illegals, it's time to start deporting rogue judges. Now, we had mentioned what Samuel Alito said about this unprecedented decision by the Supreme Court. Many outraged by it. Why did the Supreme Court not get involved when American citizens were being locked in D.C.'s prisons without due process for years, but they are interfering with the deportation of criminal gang members from third world countries under the Constitutional Alien Enemies Act? Now, we learned that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an illegal immigrant with alleged ties to a violent gang who was deported to El Salvador, has been transferred from the country's notorious mega prison days before Senator Chris Van Hollen arrived in the country to push for his freedom. Van Hollen told reporters after returning to the U.S. on Friday and again on Sunday that Abrego Garcia is no longer in CECOT, a claim that was filed in the government's daily update and now being confirmed by the State Department. Abrego Garcia told Senator Van Hollen on April 17th that he had been transferred from CECOT to the detention facility Central Industrial in Santa Ana about 8 days prior. Abrego Garcia told Senator Van Hollen that he had been placed in the administrative building of Central Industrial in a room of his own with a bed and furniture, and that he was not in a cell. Van Hollen called out President Trump, writing, "When you defy court orders and deny one man his constitutional rights, you threaten them for all." Trump can post all he wants, but a federal judge said that there's no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or to any terrorist activity. Trump needs to put up or shut up in court. Trump has argued that radical lunatic Democrats are portraying a false narrative of who Abrego Garcia really is. And if you looked at the New York Times, when they have this breaking story, it's always where was he from? A Maryland man, not highlighting his immigration status. Trump going to Truth Social saying radical lunatic Democrats and their comrades in the fake news media are falsely making Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia out to be a very sweet and innocent person, which is a total blatant and dangerous lie. Again, posting on Truth Social. Abrego Garcia's deportation has caused uproar among Democrats, many of whom have referred to him as a wrongfully deported Maryland man. Last week, Van Hollen flew to El Salvador, where Garcia was being held and was mocked by Trump for being a fool. Other Democrat lawmakers reportedly made plans to visit Garcia after Van Hollen's announcement. All right, we got to take a break. Then we're going to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Again, the breaking story from overnight. Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Please stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
In the world's poorest places, children with cleft conditions live in darkness and shame. They're shunned, outcast, living in pain. You can reach out and change the life of a suffering child right now. A surgery that takes as little as 45 minutes. And your act of love can change a child's life forever. Please call or visit operationsmile.org now. Thousands of children are waiting.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the Southern Tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hasselson studio, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Senator Van Hollen pleaded with Trump to stop talking about Garcia's crime links. President Donald Trump's deputies should stop talking about the apparent criminal record of the deported Salvadorian illegal migrant, says Senator Chris Van Hollen. Don't put everything out on social media about deported migrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he told ABC this week. The Trump administration is trying to change the Democrats' narrative. They're trying to distract attention. Here's where they should put the facts. They should put them before the court. They should put up or shut up in court under Judge Zenas, who the district court judge is in this case. He also said, I'm not defending the man, I'm defending due process, is the narrative that he's pushing, because we know, we keep learning more about Garcia, that he had issues in the past with being a wife beater. We know that they're looks to be very serious connections to MS-13. But Van Hollen saying, I'm not defending the man, I'm defending the right of the man to due process, and the Trump administration has admitted in court that he was wrongfully denied or detained and wrongfully deported. My mission and my purpose is to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, because if we take it away from him, we do jeopardize it for everyone else. He also called Trump a lawless president, ignoring the Supreme Court. He then said that the U.S. is in a constitutional crisis over the Garcia case. Oh, yes, we are. They are flouting the courts as we speak. Facilitating his return means something more than doing nothing. And they are not doing anything. Yes, they are absolutely in violation of the court order as we speak. Now, Tom Homan, the border czar, was on ABC's This Week, and he found it concerning that Senator Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador, quote, on the taxpayer dime to meet Garcia. Well, obviously he knew his whereabouts because he went there to see him. But you know what bothers me more is that this is a U.S. senator traveling to El Salvador on taxpayers' dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat, terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, was released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years under Joe Biden, when it had a 600% increase. You have a record number of known inspected terrorists crossing the border. You have 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdoses because of the open border. I just realized that I'm completely out of time. Amy Klobuchar said the Trump administration officials should be held in contempt.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
It's a season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website. The Twins' first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors, Dante, Haley, and Ann. Find out what's happening in your community and more by watching Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC.